It's a bonus episode of the Book Club for Kids. Hi, I'm Kitty Felde. Last week, we discussed Swim Team by Johnnie Christmas. This week, we continue the conversation with the author-illustrator. So, Johnnie, what comes first? The words or the pictures, the character or the plot?
I remember when I was younger, I think it was the character always first. But at this point in time, I do think of the scenario. Wouldn't it be weird if this matched with that? Almost like a Twilight Zone scenario for our younger listeners. Twilight Zone was this TV show where it was kind of like a kind of sci-fi, weird world. What if this was that, you know? So it was just this disparate dilemma sort of appears. And then in my mind, I kind of think, I always go to like, who would be the most likely person to fit in this scenario, or more likely, who would be the least likely person to get their way out of this scenario. And that way you have a really entertaining story. If the most unlikely person in the world becomes, if you're like a math teacher and you wake up and you're sitting behind the wheel of a airplane, a 747 at 30,000 feet, and that's the start of the story, and you're the pilot, that's going to be really entertaining to see how you land that plane, right? Like that's completely, maybe you're leaning on math skills and trajectory, like you're trying to pull together all this stuff, and you've got a time limit because this plane it's in the air, So I think of dilemmas like that. I think that comes first. Then I think of maybe the character, and then after that, it's all sort of kind of starts unspooling in that way that I was saying the part that I really enjoy, because even right now my brain's like, my brain is now starting to like, what would that person do? How are they going to get out of this? And that part's super fun. So that's how I start. Dilemma.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. I mean, if you start with a character and you fall in love with them, it's that much harder to torture them, to put them in conflict situations.
Because we feel so bad when we do these things to them, but you have to if you want to have a story. But if you already start off there before you know them, and then you get to know them, then I can have all these wonderful elements that I'm learning about the math teacher as I'm going through it. But I still got to get this person out of this plane. Well, too bad. You're already in this bad situation. But at this point, now I could fall in love with the math teacher and figure out who's waiting for the math teacher at home. Like, where were they going? On this plane. What's all these things that make you really care about them and their struggle. And what they're trying to achieve while trying to land a plane that they don't know how to fly.
You start with the story, but when you get around to drawing the characters, do they change from the way you originally had them in your head?
Yeah, all the time. A lot of times when I'm drawing the character, I realize just how much they feel what I thought they felt. Drawing is almost just another draft for me, but it's just with pictures. So when the person really emotes in a way that I didn't expect, but like my visual brain knows that that's how they are supposed to emote, that's when I know, she feels really bad about this. She feels worse. I thought she was upset, but no, she's like really angry about this or very perturbed by this in a way that I didn't expect. And then I would go back into the script and go like, okay. And then that lets me know something else about the character. And now throughout the whole entire story, I kind of tweak how this character reacts to certain things or why they might react to things in a certain way. So the drawings definitely change things. Not a huge, but I would say maybe like 15% of things just on how I draw them, as it comes out. That's when I know for sure. Because if what I'm doing isn't working in the drawing, I know what I have written doesn't work. But if it's working on the drawing, that's the truth. You see it, you believe it, and then you go from there.
Well, what was your path to becoming a graphic novelist?
Well, when I was a kid, I was reading comics. I think like most kids when I was growing up, it was mostly newspaper comics. So I was reading Calvin and Hobbes and Peanuts and that sort of thing, Curtis. And I just loved the form of words and pictures together. And like most kids, I just loved the comic form. And then as I got older, I got into like superhero comics, or I would even read like Archie comics. I would read anything comics. I just really loved them. And then at a certain point in time, I realized, these are made by people. I could be one of these people, because I loved drawing like a whole ton. And It was funny. A cousin of mine just told me this story. I don't even remember. She said one day I was like sitting in the backyard staring up at the sky, and my mom was in the kitchen with her, and my mom looks over at her and goes, "That man is an artist." And that's probably like in grade school. I don't know. I've never heard that before until recently. But yeah. So it was kind of in my head. And then when I started in high school, that's when it really clicked that I needed to take it seriously. Like when you start kind of deciding where you want to go in life. And I thought, okay, well, this is the road I want to go on because this is the only thing I really want to do. Went to art school, did all that stuff. But I always knew it was comics. And I did an illustration degree and all of that, but it was comics all the time. I wanted to do kids comics, but I didn't know quite kind of how to do it. So I ended up in adult comics, but I love comics for all people. Like I think I'll always be telling comic book stories. So as a kid, those were my peers. And as an adult, I was writing stories for my peers, Hopefully when I'm 85, I'll be writing comics for 85-year-olds, as well as kids, as well as, 40-year-olds or, just that's a very long answer. But yeah, it was kind of there before I even knew how, but like most kids, but for me, it just never ended. It just kind of continued. The story never closed.
Well, we look forward to the continuing stories of Johnnie Christmas. Thanks, Johnnie. We have interviews with dozens of other writers at our website, bookclubforkids.org. And that's also where you can find out how you can be on the show. Just check it out at bookclubforkids.org. I'm Kitty Felde. Thanks so much for listening.